reporting and news analysis?
Well, it's an excellent question. You must go to Harvard. I do believe you go. Look, here's the deal. The reason that the networks, and I'll only talk television here because newspapers is another story, the reason that the big networks, including CNN, have lost a lot of their cachet and audience is because they're too timid. They're afraid. There's no reason on earth that the O'Reilly factor, all right, a cable news analysis program, not a hard news analysis program, with a staff of 10, all right, should be breaking stories about the charities, Jesse Jackson, all of these other stories that we've broken. While the big media, which has staffs of hundreds, sometimes thousands, can't do that, but the truth is they won't do it. Because they're all owned by big corporations. They don't want to cause any trouble. They don't want to rile things up. I mean, when I exposed Jesse Jackson's tax-free, all right, we got finally, and Heath was involved with this, we finally got his tax-free tax returns. We should have gotten them the day we asked for them, but it took months to get them, and by law, he's got to give them out, all right, because they're tax exempt. When I finally put that on the air, there was no debate about it. I mean, the guy has all kinds of expenses he can't explain, all right? Now, Jackson called Fox and said, we're going to go out there and boycott you and do all this other stuff. Now, my bosses said, good, that'll give us more publicity, the same kind of Clinton thing I was talking about. Go right ahead, all right? Which was exactly the right way to play it, because at that point we hadn't reached the audience we reached now. If Jackson had made the same call to the other networks, believe me, it would have been a different story. So what I do is I'm lucky enough to be a maverick. I'm lucky enough to be one of these guys who come out there, and they allow me to do this kind of reporting. But if I'm wrong, I'm dead. Because they're just waiting for me to make a mistake. They're waiting for me to say something. All right? So I got to be right when I say stuff.
Dennis Ramundi, Graduate School of Education. Mr. O'Reilly, I'd like you to comment on the scandal in the Catholic Church and why you think it took so long for the press to go after this aggressively.
Well, you know, in any of the he said, she said stories, you got to be very, very careful. You know, there's always been accusations against clerics, not only Catholic clerics, but others. And you remember the Cardinal Bernardin story in Chicago, I'm sure, where the Cardinal of Chicago was accused of molestation. It was bogus. It was bogus. So, you know, this poor guy, so the press, very, very wary when it's a he said, she said situation. We can't prove it. We weren't there. There's no record. There's no, it's not, all right? You got to respect that, because for me to go on the air and level an accusation of sexual molestation against any human being, I got to know. I got to know, or at least have overwhelming evidence, or it's not fair. The real story is why the Cardinal Law and Egan in New York and these other guys knew, but they didn't do anything. Now, I've been very aggressive on a factor, going after them. I think they should resign and go back to be parish priests as their penance. Because you can't allow children to be harmed, all right? You just can't, particularly when you're supposed to be the moral voice. You know, as a teacher, I mean, if I ever did that, I wouldn't be reassigned to another classroom, right? Think about it. You know, why should these guys have that kind of immunity? It's, you know, buck stops at the top. Law and Egan, out of there.
Mr. O'Reilly, I'm Joseph from New Jersey. I'm a sophomore at the college, and I hear on your show you talk often about the liberal bias in the media and whatnot, but I haven't heard you talk much about the liberal bias in universities. I mean, you could literally count all of the conservative professors here on two hands. And I'm curious as to your thoughts on why that is the case in universities. I mean, was it the Vietnam War or whatnot? And two, what can be done about it?
Well, it's political correctness, that's for sure. 82% of all Ivy League professors voted for Al Gore, okay? There are no Ivy League colleges in Florida, by the way. So it's political correctness in the sense that there is a feeling, it's an interesting question, and I've thought about it a lot. There is a feeling in higher education that the theory is as important as the action. okay? And there's no question that liberal theory is better than conservative theory. It is. If you look at, from a humanistic standpoint, what the liberal people want to do is help the poor, redistribute income, protect the environment. That's what they want. In theory, that's great. The problem is that the programs that they embrace don't work. Don't work. Because they all go against human nature. They all go against what people will ultimately do. Conservatives realize that and say, look, this crazy stuff of taking my money out of my wallet and sending it to Haiti is insane. Stop doing it. All right? That offends a lot of theoreticians who go, well, the people in Haiti need some help. They do need help. They ain't going to get it by us sending them money because the money's never going to get there. And the conservatives know that. So that's why at higher levels of education, you have more liberals, as you say, because the feeling is that's what really aware, introspective people embrace. Better things for everybody. But it's way out of whack. I mean, it's way out of, 82%. You're not getting enough input. Is Mickey Edwards here, by the way? I think he's the 2% here at Harvard, isn't he?
Hi, Bill. My name is Mort Glantz. I'm on the medical school faculty here, and I'd like to talk to you about the subject of National Public Radio. Recently, you did a little session. You had an author on Mid-Eastern Affairs who could not get on NPR. You mentioned that you yourself were banned from there permanently. I think this, well, maybe not permanently, but...
Yeah, they renamed the show All Things Considered Except O'Reilly.
Anyway, I think it touches on the themes of political correctness, moral relativism, especially in lieu of the fact that this entity is at least partially funded publicly. Myself and some of my colleagues have been very concerned about their bias, especially in Middle Eastern reporting. This has been very carefully documented here by an organization called CAMERA. I have tried to get on some of their talk interactions and felt that I was probably being censored, in effect.
Well, you were.
We don't have time for your call.
I know what you're saying. You were being censored. NPR does, and this holds true for a lot of the left, Hollywood left particularly. They don't want to hear your point of view. It offends them. They take it personally. See, I like to hear the opposite point of view. I like to be challenged. I want to hear what Robert Reich has to say. I want to hear what Al Gore has to say, although he's too afraid to come on the Factor. But I want to hear what he has to say. The left, not confrontational, particularly on NPR, they're not confrontational, you see. They don't want to hear, it's like, ooh, now what do I do? And, I understand I speak too fast for NPR, and I told them that I will go on and speak like this if you would like. Yes, I will. So, and about they're pro-PLO. I don't know why they're pro-PLO. I can't tell you why. I don't know.
Well, they're funded by Arabs.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they get donations. I don't know. I don't know. If Abdullah's sending them money, I don't know.
We have an empty mic up here.
Uh-oh, an empty mic.
My name is Herman Soot. I'm also at the medical school, and I was interested in your assessment of the virtues of the straight black and white approach to the war on terrorism by our president. But I would like to ask you, what is wrong about having someone give some deep intellectual thought as to why this happened instead of reaching for the gun like a Texas schoolboy cowboy?
Well, I'll tell you. Here's the deal on that. There's nothing wrong with understanding the underlying philosophies of your enemy. Nothing wrong with that at all. Now, if George W. Bush wants to take, that reading material to bed with him, and he should, but I'm sure he doesn't. But it's not necessary. It isn't necessary to understand why Adolf Hitler was a psychopathic barbarian. It's not necessary for you to read Mein Kampf and his crazy rantings about Jews, gypsies, homosexuals, and everybody else. That's not necessary because he's evil. He's evil. Anybody who kills civilians in the World Trade Center or blow up babies in Jerusalem Cafe is evil. They're evil. Now, if you want to understand evil, as a doctor for an intellectual exercise, I applaud you. but you don't make policy on it. You don't pull back and you say, well, Wild West Cowboy was needed to send a message. You know, I mean, that message needed to be sent that if you do this to us, you're not going to be in power any longer. Taliban, you're out. And they're out. So I like people who are kind of in the middle. In the middle. They understand the world, but they don't allow it to paralyze them. And they see things for what they are. You know, understanding evil is something that is, for me, way beyond my comprehension. You know, I did an interview with a guy named Joel Steinberg one time. He killed his little daughter, beat her to death. And, you know, and before that had tortured her. This little 4-year-old gets sentenced to life in prison. And I looked into his eyes, and I'm interviewing him. It's pure evil. All right? I mean, I'm looking like a snake. I'm looking into a snake's eyes. Now, do I want to understand why Joel Steinberg killed his daughter? No. No, I don't. I want him to be in prison for the rest of his life.
Hi, Bill. I'm Alex Fazio. I'm from Chappaqua, New York. As you know, the U.S. has decided to charge Moussaoui, and they want to seek the death penalty. And France has said they wouldn't cooperate in sending us evidence to get this guy found guilty. I think it's an outrage. I think it's a joke, and I think France is just completely insulting the families of September 11th. I just wanted to get your opinion on it.
Well, I'm not eating any more French fries, number one, okay? Croissants, they're out, okay? It is insulting. I mean, I understand the French passion for, not wanting the death penalty. I mean, they used that same passion when the Nazis invaded. Any history majors here? I think that the French are jealous of America, generally speaking. I'm sorry, Jacques. I didn't mean it. Been in the country many times, and I see a jealousy there. I see, well, you Americans, you're this, that, and the other thing. I'm speaking generally now, of course. But as I said in the beginning, what you bring in with you shapes your policy. And the French leadership, very liberal, very socialistic country, hey, we don't want to put anybody, and that's fine. You don't want to have the death penalty in France? Fine. I don't know. But to come over here and tell our government how to run the war on terror is insulting. And I'm against the death penalty. I'm against the death penalty because I don't think it deters anything. But I was insulted by that, and I'm not going to Provence this year.
My name is Rebecca Riddler, and I'm a sophomore. I have a question based on your program the other night of media and the effects of children. You pretty much stated that the parents should be responsible, which I agree. But do you think that we should also be holding the media and the entertainment more responsible, and how so? I mean, she's talking about the Corruption in the American Child special we did on the Fox network on Thursday. And never before in the history of civilization have so many pernicious influences descended upon children than now. Never before. It's never happened before. That once you're 5 years old, you're barraged. Music, movies, television, internet, just boom, boom, boom. And we're sleeping. Just like we were sleeping about terrorism before 9/11. We're sleeping. And I ran on that special Insane Clown Posse, Marilyn Manson, some black rappers. And I showed you exactly what their message was. Here's the message. And, I have never heard of Insane Clown Posse. I mean, I thought that it was a bunch of teachers at MIT. And their album's platinum. Every kid in the country knows who these people are, but I don't know. They don't play this stuff on the radio. It just gets to them. So the only solution, because I don't believe in censorship, is for people to get angry about it. People who say, look, Time Warner, stop putting that crap out. And if you don't, we're not going to buy any of your sponsorships, or we're not going to watch CNN, which would be the best thing.
David Marshall from Harvard Law School. Love the show, and love in particular the great ads by the Weekly Standard that are on between 8 and 9 on the show as well. My question is this. Tomorrow morning you head back to New York, and Roger Ailes shuffles into your office, and he says, I've had a phone call from